The grid is under pressure it wasn't designed to handle. Surging demand, long interconnection queues, and the rise of mission-critical facilities that simply cannot go dark have created a market where reliable, dispatchable power isn't just valuable, it's essential.
Thermal energy generation is filling that gap, and Barton Malow is building it. In this episode of Said Differently, Project Director J.D. McNulty and Vice President Brian Miller walk us through the technology, the delivery challenges, and why experience across the full energy spectrum is so essential.
This is Said Differently, a Barton Malow podcast.
Brian Miller, currently serving as Vice President of Thermal Energy here at Barton Malow. I'm in my 32nd year in construction. I've been at Barton Malow 10 and a half years now. Started my journey at Barton Malow with the thermal energy team. When the battery boom happened around fall of 21, I transitioned over to lead our teams in the battery cell manufacturing arena. So I spent the last 5 years there and just transitioned back to thermal energy here at the start of the year. And just working to build up our thermal team to support everything that's going on in the market.
Hi, J.D. McNulty, Barton Malow, Project Director in the thermal energy space. I've been here for 17 years all in. Really can't say that I've done anything other than thermal generation power plants in my tenure here at Barton Malow. Been anywhere from Connecticut to New Jersey, Canada, Michigan, and some other places in between, working on generation projects.
We've spoken before about how this market is a lot different in scale and speed, but the foundation isn't new for us as a team. So what does that foundation actually look like, and why does it matter right now?
Yeah, great question. It's Barton Malow's got a long history of delivering innovative solutions to our clients, right? Especially when it comes to how we deliver our projects. Go back in time, way back in time. I mean, we were one of the lead implementers, one of the first implementers of construction management risk delivery model. And we've also seen us very active in the IPD delivery market. So we've been here and doing this for a long time and being able to get on the front end of a project when it's really, really important to influence it from a planning, constructability perspective, understanding what our clients need, delivering their projects and making sure that we can design a solution that fits that, right? And I think, beyond that, you look at our pre-construction team, right? We have a full service pre-construction department that every discipline possible for estimating, same with design management. We're able to get involved very early, move the needle quickly, understand the scope of the job, price the job, work that back and forth with our clients to make sure that that's meeting their needs. Layer onto that, what we do in self-perform, the fact that we self-perform civil, concrete, steel, interiors, centerline installation, HRSG erection is just a great foundation, right? So we've got across all those markets, our design managers, our estimators, our self-perform teams, and our project delivery teams, right? Decades of experience in thermal generation market. So that is a really great foundation, and just on top of that, what JD has been doing for the last 17 years. So our ops teams have been out there building these projects. And when you put that all together, right, our ability to self-perform, our knowledge of the market, our experience in the market, and our ability to support it from not just a builder perspective, but also on the design side, estimating side with all disciplines, it's a big differentiator for us, and it's really helped us build a great foundation to build upon as we look to do more in this market.
And I think, Brian, you pretty much said it, but, said maybe just a little bit differently. We've always had a thermal energy unit, as we call it now. But it's maybe never existed in the context or capacity that it does at this point. I think if you were to divide all of the different sources of revenue up throughout the organization, if you looked across the past, 15 years, I think that thermal energy was, always there, relevant, but maybe not to the degree that it is right now, right? Given what we're seeing on the market. And I think that's helped us to form, some of the foundation that was the basis of the question, and helping us, turn the corner and head into some very unique times, right, in terms of thermal energy, and is going to help us to scale up accordingly, right, to meet the demand.
So, in terms of having these conversations with clients regarding thermal energy, how does this compare to even a few years ago when they may have been more focused on renewables?
Yeah, definitely different times. It's changed, very quickly, right? Similar to what we saw with battery 5 or 6 years ago, right? And with a big push to EVs, and this is, factors above what we even saw there, right? So with the onset of the AI data center boom, utilities that we work with, the developers that we work with, they need reliable power that can ramp up quickly. It needs to support very high power demands 24/7. A lot of these data centers, they require the amount of generations it would take to electrify entire cities, like multiple cities, right? So think up to 1,000 megawatts for some of these facilities. So it's an absolute like massive draw, right? So while renewables are still a solution, we're very active in renewables. We're busier than we've ever been, especially with solar and the battery energy storage market. It's a great solution, but we look at the amount of land that's required for renewables, and the fact that the sun doesn't always shine, the wind doesn't always blow. Our clients are feeling the pressure to, return to, natural gas power generation to meet the volume, to meet the reliability, to meet the ramp up needs that they have to support these facilities.
How do reliability requirements at these facilities compare to other project types you've worked on? JD, I can punt this one over to you. And how does that level of uptime demand show up on the job site?
It's vastly different, right? So having a UPS system, like an uninterrupted power supply system on a power plant is fairly typical, conventional, to make sure that certain primary systems never essentially go down and you can always maintain control. And that's always existed in a power plant. But, what we're seeing right now in terms of the overbuild on the generation side, meaning having more engines that are needed, at all times in case of, an engine is down for repair or issues or being had, as well as the battery energy storage that is being implemented onto these projects behind the meter for these hyperscalers and data centers, in addition to the UPS, is definitely another level. I'm not sure that there's different tiers, like in the example that I'm drawing, it comes from like the hospital community in terms of how vital the power is in an operating room or an intensive care unit. And, they really just cannot risk having any sort of downtime whatsoever. And, what we're seeing right now in the way that these plants specifically behind the meter are being built, it's very similar to that of a hospital operating room, intensive care type of application, to absolutely minimize the amount of downtime that's had per year. And that is, it's not measured in weeks or days, but more so individual hours and minutes that they calculate for an annual basis. So that is a whole new level of reliability, and what we're seeing.
So let's back up a little bit here, and maybe we should have asked this actually earlier in the conversation, but combined cycle generation, can you break that down for a non-technical audience? Like, why does capturing heat make such a big difference in efficiency?
Think of a gas turbine as similar to a jet engine. I mean, the process starts with drawing in air and compressing it. Fuel is injected into the compressed air, ignites, which causes the gas to expand. Once that's expanded, that high pressure gas rushes through the blades of the turbine, spins it, and then basically the spinning blades then drive a generator, which generates electricity. Right. So that would be the simple cycle, high level overview. When you add in the combined cycle configuration, in simple cycle, all the waste gas, all the waste heat from that simple cycle is just going to exhaust the atmosphere. So in a combined cycle configuration, you're not going to take that exhaust. You're going to run it through what we call an 8-char SG, basically a very large boiler, and then that's going to produce the steam, and then use that to drive a steam turbine generator. And really what it leads to is about 15 to 25% better efficiency. So on the combined cycle projects, you're in the 65% range for efficiency, which is basically calculated by the amount of generous electricity generated, by the amount of fuel that's been burned. You're capturing about 60 to 65% efficiency on the combined cycle side, where you're probably closer in the 30% range on typical simple cycle configuration. So really, you're just eliminating waste, getting more out of the resources that you're using to spin the gas turbine.
When you're an owner too, right? From a front end capital investment standpoint, the gas turbines carry some of the, I'd say, higher ticketed pricing associated with them. And for a relatively minimal, I guess, if you can say that, amount of money to invest into the project to capture that heat for the generation that you're going to pick up. A lot of clients, right, absolutely find that all of the efficiencies of capturing the heat, like Brian is talking about, to drive more megawatts out of your facility is a long-term solution, right, to higher generation capacity.
You guys both touched on this a little bit. How does pairing thermal generation with battery storage systems change what's being built and delivered? And why do we do that?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely an advantage to the utilities and developers that want to pair those, right? So think a lot of the electricity is getting used at 6 o'clock at night when people are running their dishwashers or their washing machines or dryers, all those sorts of things, right? So when you pair the battery storage with thermal energy, you go and produce the electrons during non-peak times, right, where it's cheaper. You put that electricity into those batteries, you store them, and then you deploy them at the high peak times. So basically it's a lot of it's economics, but also it's if there are any like grid related events or any spikes or things of that nature, with battery energy storage, you're able to respond and feed the grid in milliseconds, where it's minutes, if you're talking about gas turbines. So there's a few distinct advantages there. It's definitely more complex, right? Now you're basically building two separate power plants that need to be completely, integrated from a controls perspective. So definitely some challenges there. They're more complicated. We're not currently working on too many projects where we're seeing our clients pair those things, but that we are starting to engage in those conversations where there are some clients coming to us who are very interested in pairing those two technologies.
So self-perform is such a huge differentiator in this space. Is there a particular trade that really comes into play that can make these projects go?
I think it's all of them. Our team's ability to, not just from estimators, but our operations people, the ability to bring them on day one into a project to, understand the scope and help influence the outcome, from a planning, scheduling, pricing perspective, just is such a differentiator for us. And also think, hey, we've got 2,000 tradesmen and women working for us at any given time, and the ability to deploy them quickly to our jobs is definitely a differentiator. A lot of times you're going through and trying to vet out subcontractors, hire subcontractors. We're shaving months off by our ability to self-perform. And really, just beyond that, even when our civil crews get on site, that's our opportunity at Barton Malow to set the stage and set the culture for what the expectations are going to be for how people are going to behave on our job sites. And that is just so critical when you're talking about a job that's 2, 3, 4 years long, to set the tone, have the logistics set up right, the infrastructure set up right, and to have that, hey, we're going to look out for each other, safety first, always, and, set that culture early on in the job so we can set the job up for success in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, setting the tone or setting the pace, right? I think some of the most vital things that we perform as a self-perform entity, right, coming out of the ground, and the foundations, the slabs, steel erection, precast, installation, things of that nature, that allows us to control pace. And for us, as we've learned that, with the back end of the job, mechanically, electrically, as well as from a control standpoint, right, that always ends up on critical path. And so setting that pace early on to put the job into the hands of the mechanical and electrical contractors pays itself in dividends, right, in terms of meeting aggressive client schedules.
And where does thermal fit alongside our renewable energy work for Barton Malow? So solar, wind, battery energy storage we just talked about. How do you talk to clients about building an integrated energy strategy?
Yeah, so we touched on it a little bit earlier, right? I mean, the last 5+ years, we've seen a major focus on renewable energy, right? For a lot of reasons. The economics works. It's become cost competitive with thermal. It's clean. So there's been a lot of drivers and motivation for clients to deploy those renewable resources, right? And at the same time now, with what's going on with AI in the data centers, it's just not enough to meet the needs. The more we can get in front of clients early, when they're those early development stages of trying to plan, trying to figure out, hey, what they need to do, what do their customers need, what are the hyperscalers looking for. Earlier we get to the table, we can start to engage with them in those conversations and talk about, hey, does it make sense to do, some sort of integrated delivery of, some different or some varying, technologies with, pairing renewables with thermal energy.
All right. So as we wrap up, just kind of think about where this market is heading and what should owners and developers be thinking about now, say if they're planning a facility 2 to 3 years down the line.
Yeah, absent any, political or major disruption happening in the market. I mean, we're in the middle of the largest growth we've seen in power in our nation's history, right? We saw explosive growth back in the early 2000s with the dot-com boom. Really stalled after that for quite some time. But now we're seeing more generation needs than we've ever seen before. Due to AI, data centers, electrification, we expect EVs to, come back once the charging infrastructure gets into place. You've got coal retirements that are still happening, right? So there's a huge need, for adding generation to the grid. And right now the forecasts are putting that out, past 2035 right now. So we've got a pretty big run in front of us here that looks to be pretty consistent. Really the first thing, for if I was going to talk to a client is, hey, whatever your customers are, whether it's a hyperscaler or whatever, understanding their needs. And that first step is get a reservation agreement right now. I mean, you're talking 3, 4, 5 years out right now to be able to secure the equipment to just even generate power anymore. So, similar challenges with commodities and things of that nature. So, get those reservation agreements in place, get the equipment bought, secured. Again, we'd love to help our clients on the front end, with kind of talking through that and different solutions that may work for them based on their needs. And immediately after that, get your EPC or your contractor on board. Like we talked about earlier with, our experience in, CM delivery model and IPD, anything that has anything to do with early contractor involvement, right? Our clients have, seen the benefits of having, their builder at the table very early on, and to be able to not just influence the planning, the scheduling, and all those sorts of things, but we're in a very constrained market right now. It's not just gas turbines that are super long lead, right? You've got electrical equipment that's out there, super long leads. Some of your bulk commodities, there's challenges with that as well. And we're dealing with labor shortages that we've never dealt with in our entire history. So getting your contractor on board early to start with the planning and getting things in place, because all those things are going to influence, what's the job going to cost at the end of the day and how long is it going to take to build. So earlier we can get involved and help out with our clients. We think that the better off they'll be.
Yeah, I would echo that sentiment, right? Partnering early with a contractor to have them in on the front end of things, to help meaningfully, contribute to circumstances that, aren't always the case if they're going through a long list of bidders and getting pricing and having to walk things in themselves, right? That front end participation is likely the best advice that, I would agree we could give to a client.
Yeah, and just one other add-on too, and we talked about it before, we're setting the tone early of culture, right? I mean, Bar Mellow is a company that people want to work for, right? They know that we're a company that does the right thing all the time. We treat people fairly. They know that the safety of our men and women out in the field are number one, and they're going to be treated well working with us. So that's why we have 2,000 tradesmen and women working for us at any given time. So the amount of resources we have, but also just who we are and how we behave, I think are the biggest differentiators that set us apart from anybody else.
This is Said Differently, a Barton Mallow podcast. For more information, visit bartonmallow.com.